Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest show of them all. This is the NFC East Mixtape. You can listen to this show on any one of SB Nation's 4 NFC East blog podcast networks. That is Blogging the Boys for Dallas Cowboys coverage, Bleeding Green Nation for Philadelphia Eagles, Hogs Haven for Washington Commanders, Tutty included, and Big Blue View for the New York Football Giants. You can watch this show on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from BGN. I am RJ Ochoa from BTB, and we are coming to you later than usual. Brandon, it's good to see you. We like to have a lot of fun. One of my great friends, and so obviously a really hard time in the NFL. We normally record on Tuesday mornings around 11 a.m. Central Time. We always tell people because things do change. And Tuesday was a really awful day. It's still an awful day. We're recording this on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. And there's a lot of I don't know what to do going on. I think across the NFL, there's a lot of awkwardness with feeling like, how do I get jazzed up about hoping the Giants play their starters amidst what happened with Damar Hamlin and the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football?
Like you said, it's obviously the reason for the delay. Just from my perspective of watching the game on Monday night, really excited as everyone was, awesome game. The crowd was just, so juiced up in Cincinnati.
Right.
It's like, oh, this is going to be a great time. It starts off hot with the touchdown. I'm like, oh, this is going to be really cool. And then just changes so suddenly and really sad. And I had some work to do on Monday night. And I just couldn't do it. I was going to do it after the game and I just couldn't get to it. I was not in the headspace to just think about football because it just didn't matter. It's like, this doesn't matter. I'm writing about winners and losers from the Eagles Saints game. And this guy may have died on the field, in the moment. I was afraid that he actually did die at that. I mean, seeing Josh Allen's face and Stephon Diggs crying and Tre'Davious White, it was really hard. And obviously it's been really cool to see the support that has been rallied for Damar Hamlin. And the charity he had put together for the children's toy drive. And it's crazy how that went from $6,000 to now over whatever 7 million or whatever it is now. But we all hope he's gonna be okay, and that's really the only thing that matters.
Yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, it just was really harrowing. And I feel like we all feel that way whenever a huge injury happens or somebody's carted off. It always is kind of a reminder at the physical price that is paid in this game. And we like to, have fun when we talk about it. And you use the word loser, like talking winners and losers. There are things that we think are silly or fun or jovial, but at the end of the day, we're all team life. We're all team human, right? And so it was just really, really, really unsettling. And so and it's so difficult to move on. And you and I, we talk a lot about we love our jobs, but what we work around the NFL, right? And talking about this and covering it and whatever. And so it was really difficult to feel like, well, what do you do? Should I even be thinking about what to do? And then feeling guilty about thinking about what to do, and waiting, because it is just this big waiting game. And so it's just, we didn't know what to do. Brandon and I, we talked and we said, let's just kind of wait and figure it out. We talked to Rachel. Rachel said, let's wait too. And so everybody was on the same page there. And so I guess now we just, it's so hard to be like, okay, now let's talk about the NFC Beast and all this, stuff that feels so silly and stupid. It's just a weird isn't the right word. It's a really tragic time. It's a really, really tragic time in the NFL. It's just really scary.
And for me, I saw Josh Sweat, stretchered off the field on Sunday.
Right,
And
on Sunday.
he was released from the hospital, but just in that moment, it's terrifying. And it's just man, there's a lot of, undercurrent of is football even going to be around? Well, is the world going to be around in so many years? Is football going to be? And it's I don't know. And it's tough. And it's tough sometimes. I know there's people out there who can't do football. It's not for them.
Right.
And I can't blame them. Because this is hard. Obviously, I do like it, and I am, but I can't. I can't always just be the advocate and act like nothing is wrong. There's a unfortunate downside to this all, and obviously there's some risk reward, and I think players to some extent, know this is the risk, this is the downside, this is why
Right.
there is so much money to be had by doing this career. And so much glory to be had and attention and good things that come out of it. It's not all bad, certainly. But there is a downside that's scary. And it's just tough. And I don't know. I don't even are we definitely seeing games this weekend? Like, I don't know. It seems like teams are getting ready to prepare as we're recording this on Wednesday, but I mean, it just feels to me like, if I'm a player, like maybe it'd just be nice to have a week off and spend time with the family and kind of just, take some time off and get in the right mindset. Not that like 1 week off solves everything and eliminates the threat of this happening again anytime soon, but I don't know. It's just a weird time.
I think it was Ryan Clark had a lot of really wonderful things to say after the game with Scott Van Pelt, and a lot of people talked about that. I know we wrote about, not you and I, but SB Nation wrote about that. I think it was Ryan Clark who had the tweet that said the next snap of football we watch is, I don't want to like put words in his mouth, but it's something like it's going to be the scariest snap we've ever watched. And it's like, yeah, like the next snap, the next game, it's just hard. And like, I mean, like we're sitting here like watching it, right? Like, and so how do you ask these players to go out and play? How do you ask, the Bills or the Bengals or whoever? I mean, like anybody, like, anybody who knows DeMar Hamlin, who doesn't know DeMar Hamlin, it's really, 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 really difficult. And so, I
And
love the Knicks. Go ahead.
so just to jump in, sorry, real quick. And like, I know this isn't the important part, but like we're up against the last week of the season, and again, that game had such massive ramifications
Right.
for like. It's not like let's say I don't know. I'm trying to think of two like Bears. Let's say Bears Texans. Like doesn't matter. It doesn't
Right.
really impact. This impacts the whole season. This impacts the MVP race potentially if that game isn't played. This impacts the Super Bowl seeding. Again, that stuff doesn't matter and compare. But it's just like hard to get back into the season when everything is just so drastically altered. I don't know. It's just a weird headspace to be in. I guess is what I keep coming back to.
And to be clear, I don't think you have to say it doesn't matter 1,000 times. We all know, like, we're all on the same page here, right? Like, none of this is significant. Like, none of this is important. It's just, and so, but like, it becomes I don't know, I don't even know like the right word. It becomes a logistical or a whatever issue that the NFL has to figure out. It's an impossible thing to figure out. Like you're saying, what's the best answer? And like, obviously, lots of people have suggested they cancel the game, they call it a tie, they adjust, they play the NFC wildcard games next week, and it's like it's so hard to even like get yourself up to like care about that and be like, well, what are the implications of this or whatever, and not even implications, but just like what is the process of it when this is rightfully the thing that is overwhelming all of us. And so I don't know what happens. I mean, like you're saying, for all we know, we finish recording this and then the NFL announces no games happen this week. They nix the bye week, whatever you want to call it, between the title games and the Super Bowl. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on what I think is the best. I mean, everything is going to be hard. Like everything is hard, and so everything's going to be hard for everybody.
There's no obvious right answer.
Right.
Another thing about the aftermath of it all was like I know a lot of people are angry because of the 5 minutes thing, and there's been talk about like how for the context there, the 5 minute like warm up period after that injury happens and the game being resumed and like look, if that's your reaction, I'm not trying to begrudge anyone or invalidate anyone's feelings, but I was just so not there. I could not be anything but like just distraught and sad, and I was not angry. I was just like confused and sad, and again I had work to do, and like part of me was like, okay, I can probably just turn this off and start working now that there isn't a game to be played. But at the same time, I was just like, it doesn't matter. And also, I can't stop watching. I need to know. Like, I think everyone, in that similar boat. Like, I need to know what happened. Like, I need to know he's okay. I need to see this. I can't just like turn off the broadcast and just sit here wondering what's going to happen.
I saw like there's been a lot of like Reddit threads and lots of like forums for people to discuss this, and I saw a comment on a Reddit thread that said, "I've never been this invested in somebody who I didn't know personally." Right? Like it had this like jarring, sort of like shaking impact, I think, on everybody who watched it. And it's one of those like NFL storylines that goes beyond, like, we do kind of tend to live in the NFL bubble, but like this transcends like football or sports or whatever. It's a worldwide story. And so I don't know what happens next. And obviously, for the rest of this hour or whatever, we're going to try to talk about the NFC East and the Eagles losing and the Giants, whatever. And like, it's like, I think, apologies to the audience that we're not in our normal, kind of chippiness that we've had over the last few weeks. We do have some reviews if we want to try to, have some fun. I mean, as best we can in this really, really difficult time. Fun is not the right word, but like try to take one step forward, I guess.
Do we want to maybe take like I know it's early, but do we want to take a break just to like kind of give this some time to breathe and then get into that, like just a transition? Does that make sense at all?
Okay, let's take a break. All right, welcome back. We took the break, and while we did, Brandon went outside and caught a Pokemon. Which one was it, Brandon?
It was. Hold on. It's tough when you're on the camera. You can't really see it. It's a Pikachu.
Oh, I
it's
see
in
it.
the corner of my video there.
I've seen that on some Instagram stories that you've been tagged into, by the way. So
yeah.
So, okay, we have a lot of football that is inconsequential to get to, but we do have a lot of reviews that look. It's been, like I said, a tense last few weeks, so let's kind of warm up with this. So I'm gonna try to blitz these. These are all on the blog on the boys feed. I don't know what everybody else has, but so this one was on December 18th from Dropping Them Truth Bombs, titled NFC East Mixtape. These are all 5 stars. 5 stars for the mixtape. RJ should have been a lawyer with all the hopscotching technicalities and semantics he plays. It's impressive, genuine. BLG, thank you for your calm presence amidst a storm of Cowboys homerism and copium. RJ, what was the worst part of making that Micah Parsons versus Nick Bosa tweet? The fact that you had to make a tweet slandering your man, or that it seemed many people agreed? 11,000 likes. In all seriousness, appreciate the work everyone does to get these pods out. December 22nd from Amir_S, Least to Beast mixtape. Loving the mixtape content. Can't wait for it every week. Every week as the season closes, you can hear things getting a bit more chippy between RJ and BLG. Can we get some weekly highlights of the trash talk in the Slack channel? Go Birds, with the eagle emoji.
Okay.
I think it's interesting, by the way, that the eagle emoji is flying to the left, just like the actual Eagles logo. Like, you know how we talk about that a lot, how it's the only one that's moving right to left? The emoji is doing that as well. So that's interesting. Okay, next one. This is December 27th. So this is the first one post Cowboys Eagles on Christmas Eve from Mikey-ness 88. It's titled For RJ. This is actually just, here we go. I listen to every episode and will love the Cowboys until I die. This should be read on the NFC East mixtape because it's an unbiased opinion that has nothing to do with my diehard love of the Cowboys. I ignore all of the times my girlfriend complains about RJ's voice because, well, I love the Cowboys 30 years before I had to put up with her crap. But how could he not understand National Lampoon's Christmas Story? It's like someone not understanding how you could love America's team. You have to be missing a few brain cells to not love National Lampoon's Christmas Story, and you must be missing even more to not love America's team. I still rate 5 stars because we them boys. But seriously, RJ should eat 5 cheesecakes an hour until he admits he's in the wrong here. Yeah, I watched is it Christmas Story or Christmas Vacation? We talked about this on the live show. I watched it. It was like, okay. I mean, like maybe it's just been too long, but whatever. This was Wednesday.
It's more about the tradition of it than it being an amazing movie. Yeah.
This is from good friend Mario Cap, just titled Mario Cap. RJ, I was impressed by the Cowboys and especially Dak. Dallas has a great team. Dallas and the 49ers scare me. Dak scares me. I was glad to see Micah and Jordan Mailata / Dallas Goedert shaking hands after the game. I know you wrote about them kind of squashing their beef over at BGN. From KSP 88, NFC Beast, in parentheses, copyrighted by RJ and BLG. There are many reasons to listen to this show. 1, BLG has the best taste in football teams, but nothing else. 2, RJ has the best taste in everything but football teams. Buffalo sauce for nuggets? Really, BLG? 3, they are very fun to listen to. It's like the rated G version of the toxic hate you see on Twitter between Eagles and Dallas fans. That would be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to us. 4, listening to BLG, I'm reading this verbatim, defend his tall height of 6'4". Despite my undying hate of the Cowboys, RJ will humanize their fans until you open the Twitter app back up. Thank you for the amazing content. Finding the mixtape has been one of my favorite podcasts of the year. P.S. Go Birds. Last one from T-Dub Willier. It is titled NFC East Mixtape Grievance. First off, and this is the only one I haven't read ahead of time. First off, I want to say I love the show. I have listened since the beginning. RJ and BLG's banter back and forth is great. I highly recommend the podcast. I appreciate typically the candor that is used during the show. However, I do have to share a grievance. RJ, when he gets defensive, will not let the LG speak. After the Eagles lost the Cowboys, I've only listened a few minutes and contemplating turning it off because RJ would talk over BLG instead of having the back and forth banter. Again, love the show, but would just like to be able to hear people talk instead of just yelling over each other. We got a lot of that. When it
I was going to say that was a common sentiment last week. So I think we can do better, both of us, on that. Maybe we get the talking stick out, whatever. I think that's fair.
What if we just like share some love? Brandon, I love you.
I think we usually do a good job of. I was going to gloss right over that. Of if someone's trying to jump in, you let them talk. But yeah, look. Hey, it's we're not perfect. You know, we make mistakes and we can do better. And that was
I
a common
think
sentiment. I think enough people said that to where it's probably true.
I agree with you. And so, hey, we're looking in the mirror right now. I'm looking at a 6'4" BLG, and I think this was a really we've talked a lot about how juiceless these Cowboys Eagles games have been, but this season was a really toxic setup for the second game with how a lot of Eagles fans, yourself included, were fine. Like, I don't want to hear that it's Cooper Rush, blah, blah, blah. Like, Eagles fans took every opportunity to take their victory lap. And then the fact that the stage was set equally, but like in a polar opposite way, and allowed Cowboys fans to do the same. Like, it just, everybody got upset in the same way. Everybody got to be happy in the same way. And everybody thinks that the other is stupid for feeling the way they felt either time.
I want to give props to Mario Cat, by the way, because he does something that a lot of reviewers don't do. And you don't have to necessarily. I'm not saying everyone this is what you have to do, but you can leave another review. Like, you don't,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like one review for the rest of your life. You can alter your review if you feel you want to, and it'll go back up to the top. So if you have another thought or something you want to share, I think some people might not like realize that and feel like they're just locked into that one time. If
Good
you have
call.
an updated, question or comment, then leave another review. So there you go.
Okay, so we love each other. I heard Brandon say he loved me. That's okay. And now we're gonna try to talk about football. So that being said, we have to go in divisional order. This is the only division in the NFC that does not have a winner. The other three have all handed out hats, all handed out T-shirts, but the Philadelphia Eagles cannot lock this up. They lost
Mm.
to the New Orleans Saints. To be clear, you did lock up the Saints on the Look Ahead, the other show that we do that everyone should go listen to with Rob Stats Guerrera on the SB Nation NFL show. We'll get stats on here, by the way, at some point in the offseason for those who don't go over there so you can
Well,
finally meet stats.
maybe during the playoffs, if there's
That's a
a
great point. It's a
49ers
great point.
matchup. Yeah.
But so Eagles lose to the Saints. You locked the Saints up, but you did say you thought the Saints would cover, but the Eagles would win. That did not happen. Unlike the Christmas Eve game, this wasn't like there's a lot to kind of maybe be excited about or
No.
believe in when it comes to Gardner Minshew. This was really kind of flat from the very beginning for the Eagles. I know there was was it 77-yard touchdown to AJ Brown, 78, whatever.
Hmm.
That felt like it, like, okay, here it comes, but it just never came. And then the pick six was obviously the ultimate end.
Yeah, the vibes are weird heading into this game. I did think it was going to be a tough competitive game. The Saints getting back Marshawn Lattimore was a big deal. He hadn't played since week 5, and he's obviously a really good cornerback. They also got Olave back after he had missed, I think, at least just one game. So, things were kind of trending in their favor a little bit, at least on the injury front. I also think that the energy was weird. Like I said this on BGN radio to Jimmy Kemsky, but driving into the stadium on Sunday, it was like the easiest time I got to the link all year. Like, there was not a lot of traffic, and this is
Oh, you're
after
like
New Year's
the
Eve.
smoothest ride, you're saying?
Yeah, like there
Yeah.
was not that like there was no one there, but relatively speaking, like this was not a game I think people were super juiced up for, considering people maybe a little hungover from New Year's Eve the night before. So I don't know that the crowd was like fully there too. And then it didn't help that the Eagles started the game out by allowing Andy Dalton to just march right down the field methodically, and that kind of made the crowd angry and restless from the jump, and they weren't like fired up. So yeah, I mean it
So,
was a really bad game. Eagles never led. They did not deserve to win that game. It looked like they could have maybe stolen it at one point.
right.
But
Especially after the Brown touchdown.
yes,
Yeah.
but it just never. And then it was over basically. When Minshew threw that pick six, I think to me, so a lot of people want to blame the coaching staff, and I'm not saying they're blameless in it, but I think it's become a little bit too much of like, oh, the coaches were terrible, and
That's what
not
I said
enough.
last week about Jonathan Gannon. That was my whole argument about for him.
Well, I mean, specifically on offense, I think people were like Minshew was bad, but he didn't get enough help. And that's true, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, if I'm assigning like the most blame for the loss, it has to be Gardner Minshew, like by far
Sure.
and away. He was terrible. He could not throw an accurate pass. He looked so jittery in the pocket, never stepped up. Like, everyone's like, "Oh, the Eagles offensive line was terrible." And it wasn't great for sure, but he was holding on to the ball for forever and like like running into sacks because he was running out. He was really really bad.
I have a few questions, and so we obviously have a lot to still get to. So like, let's kind of try to be quick with this. I thought my vantage point, like watching this game on Red Zone and sort of seeing in the moment what Scott Hansen was giving me, it felt like Miles Sanders like kind of stood up to the challenge, especially like following the fumble. Like again, from my perception, it didn't seem like this game was lost on Miles Sanders' shoulders. It felt like, especially in the second half, that first possession, like Miles Sanders was like, okay, like Jalen Hurts is not here. Somebody's got to step up. It felt like Miles Sanders rose to that occasion. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it was tough because people wanted, the Eagles to run the ball more, and certainly the Saints defense is better against the pass than the run. So there's some fairness to that. I always have the hard time of saying like, okay, but when you're doing that, you're also saying, hey, let's not get the ball to either Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, or
Right.
AJ Brown on this play. So it's like you can't come into the game and like
Well,
run.
I'm lauding the effort that Miles Sanders gave. I'm not lauding
So
the
that,
game plan.
right, but on him though, he had a knee brace coming into this game, and he was like he missed a practice on I think Wednesday, was limited on Thursday, was full on Friday. So I don't think he was 100%. So that was tough too. That was like a tough part of the game plan. Is I don't think they were ready to have him carry the ball 20 times because of that.
So I want to
But
get
yes,
to
I do agree. When he was out there, he did play well. Yes.
okay. So I want to get to injuries because there's a lot, unfortunately, to get to. But just for clarity, so because everyone, that's why people like the mixtape. People want to hear, and Cowboys fans trust you more than they do like their own selves when it comes to this team. You mentioned Andy Dalton. It was a very similar thing, right? Like he and Taysom Hill were like 17 of 17 together or something like that. What was it?
I think it was 15 of 15 in the first half, and then they finished the game 20 of 24. It's just
okay. And so in addition to that, it was 4 straight 3-and-outs to start the game for the Eagles.
yes, they
Okay.
had their first down came with 11 seconds remaining in the first half.
Yeah, it's just you can't win like that. I mean, like I know
No.
they like kind of came close, but you just can't. Like it's
But you also can't win when like your second possession of the game comes 13 minutes in the second quarter because your defense is on the field for forever.
So this game also fed the like I'm a big fan of Dave Damashek, formerly NFL media. Now does he's all over the place, but he's popularized the Jenga theory, which is the game of Jenga. If anyone doesn't know, you take one piece away, the whole tower comes tumbling down. Who is that player on an NFL team? Damashek plays it obviously in a non-quarterback sense because quarterbacks are naturally Jenga pieces. This game fed into the idea that Lane Johnson is the Jenga piece for the Philadelphia Eagles. You take him away, and it's very, very hard for them to win football games, which is amazing. Like I'm in no way trying to diminish his value, but like I don't know of another right tackle that is that important to a team.
Well, I think he's one of the best tackles in the NFL. Not just one of the best right
like
tackles. He's one of the best. He might be the best. I think you can make a case he's the best tackle.
I'm
Obviously,
not trying to like
disagree.
say he's not great because he plays on the right side, but like
Yeah.
that's just a unique thing that isn't typically the case for NFL teams.
I mean, but the absence of Hurts was big too, and that obviously goes without. But like the Micah Parsons, is it Hurts or is it the team? I mean, Hurt on Sunday it was definitely Hurts.
I saw a lot of that. Micah was, I hate to say proven right, like it's such a silly thing, but like the Christmas Eve game fed into what Micah said. This game obviously did not. But you could argue that this game, you could argue, well, hey, Gardner Minshew didn't have Lane Johnson, whatever, blah blah. The system is, what define the system how you want. But so, what is the state of Eagles injuries now? And again, we're recording this Wednesday, so I think we're going to get this out Wednesday afternoon. So there will be an injury report in all likelihood. Again, we'll see what the NFL does. But so Jalen Hurts expected to practice. Lane Johnson, we don't think he's going to play. Avonte Maddox still out. Josh Sweat, what's the situation? I guess Miles Sanders, like what is the overall state of things?
Yeah, we don't know anything about Sweat other than he was released from the hospital and he tweeted he's going to play again this year, but we don't know. I'm guessing it's not going to be this week.
That could be playoffs or a divisional round after the bye, right? A million different
things. We don't know. But as far as the big thing is Hurts, and I think Hurts is going to play. I've said it to you multiple times here. It was always 2 weeks. I don't like somehow that got lost in the conversation for some people. And they're like, oh, they should have played him earlier. Well, it's like it was always going to be 2 weeks. Like that was the expectation that was set from the jump. And leading up to last week's game, he was limited in practice for 2 days. He was ruled doubtful in the injury report. I think it's important to kind of take note of what that designation means because they could have just ruled him out. Usually, if you're doubtful, you don't play. But if they ruled him out instead of doubtful, I think the doubtful indicates, okay, he's not ready this week, but he's probably ready for the next game. And I do expect him to be out there against the Giants this week. And it was reported on Sunday. Schefter does those like midnight reports.
Players not expected to play.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of those was Hurts is going to be ready for this week. And that was even before they lost to the Saints. Yeah, so I don't think this is like an overreaction or like, oh, the Eagles are panicking. No, I think this was the expectation all along.
Well, we did talk about this, right? 2 weeks ago, we said, you know, somewhat jokingly, but we said, what if they lose both games, right? And what if the
Hmm.
Cowboys, win? And like, and I remember you said, oh, what if the worst thing happens? Like this is the worst thing. But like we said all along, you don't play him these first 2 games because if you have to smash the glass and push the emergency button, you do it. This is that, and that's not to say like there's panic in the streets, but like this was the worst case scenario in the literal sense. And
Sure.
so now it's time to like deploy whatever you have to deploy. I thought I read, I could be wrong. I thought I read that he did not take any first team reps last week. So that's interesting. I'm very, very interested to see what the injury report is like on Wednesday and what designation he's given. That won't tell or imply the whole story, but it will be interesting
Well,
nonetheless.
if he's full go, I'm pretty sure he's, you can expect
Well,
he's
yeah,
going to
but
play.
if he's like questionable, then it's a little like, and I think I understand why all this happened. This isn't to bag on Nick Sirianni, but all of the like, oh, he's great, he's fine, he's a better athlete than you and I. All that talk, all that has done is create the like tension. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? That like now exists by telling everyone he could have like, what was the line against the Cowboys? He could have played if this was a playoff game, and maybe that's true. But like by saying all of that, if he comes out and is questionable on Wednesday, and maybe somebody's listening to this and he wasn't, like that's where this like underwriting tense, sort of where these vibes are coming from.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, my expectation is he will be full because he was limited last week, and I think they're going to upgrade him. And it's time. You have the 1 seed to play for. You have to be out there. So that's what I expect.
So I wanted to come here and offer reasons to be positive if you're an Eagles fan, because I didn't want even
Wow.
like this was my thought on Sunday. This like truly my thought was I'm going to come here and say reasons to, well, because we had gotten the like y'all are bickering too much, blah blah blah. So reasons to be positive. You're in a win and in situation. All right, you got to a place where you could lose 2 games in a
Right.
row, one within the division, and still get yourself in with a win. You win this game, nobody cares. You win this
Right.
game, the loss of the Saints, it doesn't matter. It's all fine. You win this game, you move on. Jalen Hurts is probably coming back. You win this game, Lane Johnson's probably available in the divisional round. Again, I don't know the Josh Sweat situation, but so there's an overwhelming amount of reasons to be positive. I will say, and I saw you wrote in your post game recap about this game, the Saints game. Like if they lose this game, you literally wrote like, man, like like that would be like, remember when they were still undefeated and it was like, which undefeated team are the Eagles going to be? Like most recent ones. That would be some huge 2021 Arizona Cardinals energy to lose this game and fall all the way to the 5 seed.
Unmitigated disaster if they get the 5 seed. There's a scenario, by the way, where they lose and they can get the 2 seed. That would involve the Cowboys also losing, but the 49ers winning. So it's not 1 seed or 5 seed. There is one
Right.
scenario where they get the 2 seed, which is still a failure. Not, I wouldn't say that's unmitigated disaster. I'd say that's like a
It's a
failure.
failure in that you had 3 shots to close it and you
Yes.
missed all 3.
But like,
Yeah.
okay, the 2 seed, it could be worse. It's not, but the 5 seed is just, there's no forgiveness for that. It's just unacceptable. You go from having 2 home playoff games to get to the Super Bowl to 3 potentially road games, depending on how, things play out in the playoffs. Potentially you get a home game if, whatever, 7 seed, 6 seed wins and goes on a run. But yeah, I mean, they have to win this game. And it is a bit of a failure already that they've gotten to this point in the sense of they could have rested guys and avoided some of these further injuries that might pop up, God
I
forbid.
would
And
only offer, by the way, like people who are like Eagles fans that are like, well, if they had just beaten the Cowboys, the Josh Sweat injury, like you have no idea. Like, and I hate this. Like, and we'll talk about the Giants shortly, but like, oh, they're just gonna rest all their stars. How many players do you think an NFL team has on their roster? Like,
right.
they cannot. Like they cannot just be like, let's rest all 22 starters. That's impossible. You cannot do that. So like, you cannot say this or that wouldn't have happened if we had locked it up a week earlier.
Especially in the context of when it happened too. I mean, it happened on the first drive. I mean, there's a decent
Right.
chance that even if they're resting their starters, they still treat it like a preseason game and play the starters for maybe like the first drive, but just to get them out there and get them some work.
And it's
So
still
yeah.
gonna happen. Right. Yeah.
Um,
Um,
the last thing I'll say is that I think I'm generally less concerned than everyone else, and I'm not gonna like begrudge anyone. I'm not gonna talk anyone down from the ledge. If you're concerned about the Eagles, feel free. I mean, I'm not gonna like
you have a
there's
right to be. You
yeah,
really do.
exactly. But I just don't think I'm there. And I don't, again, I said to Jimmy, I don't know if this is me being detached from doing this for so long, but I also genuinely, you're the one who likes to talk about, and it's mostly a bit, I guess, like the last time this happened,
I
the
would
Cowboys
never
won
have
the
a bit.
Super Bowl.
I would never commit to a bit at any point ever in time ever. That would never be my thing.
The last time this happened, the Cowboys won the Super Bowl. The last time this happened, the Cowboys, like, you do that. I mean, the last time. So I feel like I should be allowed to say, and I'm not saying just because this happened doesn't mean it will happen again. But if we're putting things in perspective, the Eagles, the 2017 Eagles, when they won the Super Bowl, like, were not playing amazing football down the stretch leading into the play. They were not. They looked terrible against the Raiders. They barely won that game. Nick Foles looked awful. And then they played their starters at the beginning of that Week 17 game against the Cowboys because they looked bad in that Raiders game and wanted to, like, get some positive momentum going and, like, see if they could get things clicking a little bit. And it backfired in a big way because Foles looked like even worse somehow. And people were talking about, oh, we should bench Foles and put Nate Sudfeld in. Like, things were bad at the end of that 2017 regular season. But guess what? You get the bye week. That gives you some time to heal and rest up and for things to change a little bit. And although in fairness, they weren't, like, didn't really, like, all firing on all cylinders right out of the gate against the Falcons. That game was tight. And
when
so
it went down to the wire, right?
Yeah.
And
so
like,
maybe
was it a defensive stop, right? Like Matt Ryan missed
it was a
Julio,
defensive
right?
stop
Yeah.
in the goal line. So, like, against what I'm saying, maybe they do come out and look shaky in that first playoff game. But, like, it's just by no means is the season over when you can get the 1 seed with a win. So like, if we're talking about concern level on a scale of 1 to 10, Jimmy said he was like at a 7. Like, that's just too high for me. I'm like at a 4. I'm not ready to panic.
I think that both answers can be true, though. I think you can be at a 7, like, with regards to how you think they'll play this week. And I know that I didn't listen to the episode. Sorry, love BJ and Radio, but I didn't listen to the episode. But, like, I think you could be at a 7, like, with how you think they'll play this week based off of that. But you can be at, like, a 4 in the overall because the point you're talking about speaks to, like, the NFL playoffs as a whole. Right, if the Lions get, or like the Packers, right? Like the Packers get in. Does it matter that they lost to the Jets earlier this season, or that they lost to the Giants in London? Like, no, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. You get in, you go on a run. However that run happens, like you talked about the 2017 Eagles, it does not matter. So, like, that's why I'm like, and this is a great segue to the Cowboys. And I'm sure you probably,
last thing I'll say about the Eagles is, like, even if they win against the Saints, even if they win against the Cowboys, it's all about Jalen Hurts' health. Like, it doesn't matter if they're winning these games and he's not healthy versus if they're losing them and he is healthy. I'll take the losing and he is healthy over the other. It all comes down to where his health is at. That's what really matters the most, not if they beat the Saints or not.
You use the word failure. The only way, because I agree with you, the only way I define what has happened as a failure is if the week before the Cowboys game, like right after the Hurts injury officially happens, right? If Sirianni, whoever, sit and lay out a plan and they say, okay, the ideal plan is that Jalen doesn't play the rest of the regular season, right? Like, the ideal plan is we lock this up, he doesn't play. We really want to avoid that at all costs. And you haven't avoided that. So, like, that's where the failure is. Like, if you have, I don't want to say, like, he's not healthy. That's not my implication. But if you have compromised the plan that you laid out when you were not emotionally compromised, then that's the failure to me. So it's fine if this is your plan B, but you did fail with regards to plan A. That's all I'm saying.
I agree with that. I do think they are always going to play him in week 18 at least a little bit, even if it was just for a drive or two. Again, I don't think they wanted that layoff from mid-December or whatever, early December until mid-January. But and it's possible that, depending on how this Giants game goes, and we'll get into that a bit later, it's possible that they only have to play him for like a half, depending on how things go. But we'll see.
Or depending on how things go with the Cowboys, right? Because, I mean, I guess no, because you still have to deal with the 49ers and the threat of them winning and, whatever, like you said. But so, like I said, you get in, nobody cares. And I had to have this exact conversation with Cowboys fans all last Friday morning. Oh my gosh, we only beat the Titans on the road 27-13. You talked about how I like to do the, like, last time, whatever. You are king of, like, short week, short rest, on the road, whatever. This was your fever dream. You've been screaming for this opportunity for like 5 years now. The Cowboys had to play a short
acknowledge
rest.
Acknowledge what
road.
I'm going to say.
I know. Well, hang on. Setting my point up. Brandon has literally written many years about how the Cowboys have never had to play a Thursday night game on the road coming off of a Sunday. The Cowboys have played prior to last week. Well, let me set my point up, because for anyone who doesn't listen, maybe they're parachuting in for the first time. Prior to last week, the Cowboys had never played a road Thursday night game without playing on Thanksgiving at home the week prior. So they had never had to go Sunday to Thursday, on the road. Again, and you can argue about how that's its own difficult thing, whatever. They did have to do it this time. However, the qualifier Brandon wants, and he's right, is they were coming off of a Saturday game. So still not Sunday to road Thursday night, but this was obviously closer than anything they've ever had to what you wanted to see. So they had that factor. However much you want to define that to be a big deal, they were on the road in general against a potential playoff team in the Titans. I know Josh Dobbs. I know the rest of Derrick Henry. They were 13.5-point favorites, and they covered on the road on what was a short week. You talked about the Eagles game being a short week for the Cowboys and the Eagles, obviously, and it was. And so, like, was it the most impressive win of all time? No, but was it the worst performance of all time? Cowboys fans were on the ledge, dude. I mean, I was trying to be like, dude, this team is so good. And then they picked up the help they needed, obviously, on Sunday. And they may not get the help they need this week, but, like, the Cowboys have put themselves in as best of a situation that they could have. And in a season where they did not have Dak Prescott for 5 games and Tyron Smith for double-digit games, like, that is a job very well done.
Yeah, I did not really take anything away from that game in terms of like the biggest concern is that Tyler Biadasz got hurt, and that's not good. But from the game itself, didn't take away a whole lot. If I saw the win probability chart that ESPN had, and the Cowboys were like never in serious jeopardy of losing that game. You know, it was a little tighter than you probably wanted it at times, but like that's the NFL. That's hard to win. The Titans did rest not just like Henry, but like a lot of key players, and they should have. That was smart by them. Gear up for the Week 18 game that matters. But yeah, I mean, I said if not on the SB Nation NFL show, at least on BGN Radio, like just put your life savings on the money line for that game because like the Cowboys are going to win that game.
You said it in the Slack channel that that they mentioned actually,
but it was true. Like the Cowboys were not going to lose that game. The Titans were not trying to win that game.
Well, the only thing I would say to that, because I agree with you. I wouldn't say they weren't trying to win. I would say they didn't care if they won. Right.
Yeah,
like
they
there's
weren't
a difference.
Going all out to win is what I mean.
Right. But they did play their preferred quarterback. Like there is this take that's like, well, they play Josh Dobbs. Well, like that's what they're playing this week. Like they played the quarterback who they believe gives them the best chance to win. Like whether or not that's like a good thing or whatever, or like you can debate how sad or whatever that is right now. Fine. But they played the quarterback who they think is the better option. And he played well. Like I'm genuinely interested for the Saturday night game between Tennessee and Jacksonville. But you mentioned Tyler Biadasz. He is expected to hopefully be back for the playoffs, as is Jonathan Hankins, the defensive tackle who the Cowboys traded for a week before the deadline. Leighton Vander Esch probably not going to play this Sunday in Washington. I don't know if Tony Pollard's going to play. That I'm very interested about. I wouldn't call him a healthy scratch, but they were smart about him in Tennessee. And this is something because so now the Cowboys have to play on Sunday against Washington.
Yeah.
We didn't mention.
I wanted to ask you about this. Yeah.
We haven't mentioned this, but Dallas, Philly, and San Francisco all play in the afternoon slot. All of their results, are necessary to one another potentially. And we had this conversation at BTB on our roundtable last week. So last Tuesday, before the Cowboys played the Titans, we said, okay, if the Cowboys win, is there any part of you that is rooting for the Eagles to win? No, I never root for the Eagles. It's like, yeah, I know. But the idea was it takes it out of your hands. You know what I mean? It forces your issue. It forces you to like you've talked about, like you have to protect Jalen Hurts from himself, whatever. Like you protect yourself from yourself in the sense if you're the Cowboys. And so, it's fair to say I want the 1 seed because like who doesn't? But like how likely is that? Not very. And so I'm happy, but I it's one of those things where I think you would have been happy to some extent either way.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, especially because the 49ers are a factor here, and we didn't necessarily expect that for a bit, but like,
So for full clarity for everyone, Eagles win, everything's theirs. One seed in
or
division.
tie. Because of the Vikings lost, the Eagles can actually, I know it's unlikely, but I'll note that. They can tie.
Okay. So for the purposes of easiness, Eagles win, everything's over, simple, boom, done. If Eagles are up like 30-0, I expect Dallas to like chill out, call the dogs off, whatever. A Cowboys win on its own does nothing. A Cowboys win and an Eagles loss gives Dallas the NFC East. Now, in that situation, they are at the very least the 2 seed, which you talked about Philadelphia potentially being. If San Francisco also loses, then Dallas is the 1 seed. And I think San Francisco is the 2 seed then. So
it's the 49ers are, for the record, like 7-point favorites against the Cardinals.
No, they're like 15.5-point favorites.
Oh, it went up? Wait, what am I looking at?
Off.
Maybe I'm thinking of last week's line or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, point being, the point is the 49ers are big favorites against the Cardinals.
They're at home just like the Eagles are. Dallas is the only road team in this particular week. So
14,
yeah.
It's at 14 right now. Yeah. Same as the Eagles-Giants line.
But a San Francisco win on its own does nothing either, except keep them in the 2 seed at worst. So Dallas, like Philly, can only be 1, 2, or 5. Minnesota is probably 3. I mean, like that's not firm, but that's probably going to be the case. Tampa is locked at 4. So yeah, I mean the Cowboys need the most, obviously, of all 3 teams. And the Vikings lost last week. added or helped with this. If the Vikings hadn't lost last week, we'd be sitting here being like, well, if this is whatever. But the Vikings took themselves out of it. I don't want to talk about the Vikings. Last week was really hard, but
we can get to that in the SB Nation NFL show.
But yeah, so you have to play your starters, but this should be an easy game for the Cowboys as far as, I mean, the Cowboys, unlike, well, it's a weird thing. I guess this is our natural way to kind of segue into the Giants and the Commanders. Like everything's kind of in this weird.
Well, I didn't get your answer. So are you glad that the Eagles so where are you with that?
I mean, if the Cowboys win
what
the
would
one
you have
seed,
preferred?
Well, so this
but
is also,
do you think that's likely? Do you think it's likely both the 49ers and Eagles are going to lose this weekend?
I think it's more likely that the Eagles lose, to be fair.
Sure.
Just to be clear, then I think it is that the Niners will lose. But that's an important part of my answer, because who do you think gets the 7 seed? You think Green Bay?
Yeah.
Think they win? Right.
You're not reading the vibes correctly if you think otherwise.
Right. So as Brandon takes a sip of his, I'm going to assume Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Did you use the app for that?
I did use the app for that. It was a
look how good of a friend I am. And I remember
buy one drink, get a free medium cold brew. So there you go.
Okay. Well, so where I'm at on this, and we didn't have our roundtable on Tuesday night, obviously. But we were going to discuss this is okay, so, well, do you want the 2 seed or the 5 seed? Common sense is well, I'd always rather have the 2 seed. Give me the home game. But it's well, this 2 seed is accompanied by Aaron Rodgers, right? So and Aaron Rodgers is a scary proposition for either team here, right? The Cowboys or the Eagles, right? He's a scarier proposition for the Cowboys because of who Aaron Rodgers and the Cowboys are related to one another. And so, so there's a lot of Cowboys fans who have the take I would much rather go to Tampa and play Tom Brady there than host Aaron Rodgers and the Packers at AT&T Stadium. I mean, whatever. But whether you even if you believe that, I think you have to assume your team is going to win, right? If you're picking the path you prefer. And so for that reason, I prefer the 2 seed because say the Cowboys win, right? Which you have to assume, because you're hoping for the best. So we think the Cowboys win in that situation. Do we think the Vikings beat the Giants? Probably. Not that the Vikings are great, but they probably win, right? No. You don't think so?
Yeah, the last game went down to the wire. Came to a 61-yard field goal.
I think the Vikings win that game. And so so you asked for my opinion. This is my assessment. So I would think if it wound up 1 through 7, Niners, Cowboys, Vikings, Bucks, Eagles, Giants, Packers, obviously I'm hoping the Cowboys win. I think the Vikings beat the Giants. I think the Eagles beat the Bucks. And so the reason I prefer the 2 seed is because then it's the Eagles who go to San Francisco. And I only want to deal with one of them. You know what I mean? Have them play one another, and the 2 seed is the best possible way for that to happen.
I mean, it would just be such a failure. The Eagles drop to the 5 seed. And it's also very funny.
I know, but you asked what I preferred.
No, I get it.
And so what makes this complicated too to ask what I prefer is that Tampa is locked. So now Tampa has the opportunity to rest their starters if that's the team that Dallas winds up playing, or Philly for that matter.
Right. So yes. All right. We should probably move on to the
Okay. So we had sat here and talked about man, the Giants and Commanders might be both in situations where Philly's locked at 1, Dallas is locked at 5, and they're both jockeying for playoff position. They have nothing, they need everything, and Dallas and Philly are going to chill. Total complete opposite for different reasons. Dallas and Philly both need this game. Obviously, Dallas needs more than that, though. New York is locked in as the 6th seed. They cannot improve. They cannot worsen their draft or their playoff position. The Commanders are eliminated. So, if anything, the Commanders are incentivized to lose, right? Improve your draft pick, right? Who cares? I don't need the moral win. I don't need the good vibes, whatever. I want the high draft pick. For what it's worth, I'm kind of putting these 2 teams together. We don't need to review. Actually, I guess last thing before we get into it.
You clinched the playoffs for the first time in forever.
Well, this is all related, and this is a long episode. So we kind of have to, bake all this in together here.
The boat curse is done, RJ.
Well, I don't know. The Kayvon Thibodeau moment might be the new thing. Might be God. There are a lot of people with a lot of opinions on this. I haven't seen him say anything on this. Admittedly, personally, I haven't seen any quotes.
Apparently, he apologized, quote unquote, after the game, but it's just so garbage. I can't believe there's so many stories that I've read getting away with oh, he apologized, so it's okay. And he didn't mean to celebrate Nick Foles getting hurt. He clearly did a go to sleep motion on the sideline. He knew Foles was hurt at that point. I just don't know how people are letting him get away with that. He clearly did that. We saw it.
I don't know what the Giants do about that. I mean, maybe they don't care. Maybe they're like, we're in the playoffs, boat curse is dead, like you're saying,
That's
like
pathetic
whatever.
if they don't do anything. I mean, I don't know if they do something publicly, but they better talk to. I mean, like and honestly, the NFL should fine them. That's pathetic. You can't do
I agree.
that. Like
I agree
that's
with. I agree. I mean, you could talk about suspending and blah blah. Did you suspend him for like
what if that was
this?
Damar Hamlin? What like because he doesn't know. Like he doesn't know. Like he doesn't know necessarily where Foles is at that. Well, I don't know. Maybe on the sideline, but like I mean, and maybe he didn't know when he was doing the snow angels on the ground. I don't fully buy that because I did see his head turn at one point, and he was also doing them for a very long time. It wasn't like he did like a quick little thing. He was on the ground for a very long time, and also I want to put blame on his teammates for not going up to him, being like, "Dude, like chill out," because it felt like there was enough people to see that there to be like, "Hey, maybe don't do this right now." So I don't think it's a
Um,
good look, and I don't think it was a mere case of like an honest mistake. That's BS. It's not an honest mistake. That's garbage.
I didn't see enough to have a properly educated opinion. So I want to be very clear about this. So like if you've seen enough to have your own opinion, like that's up to you. But I haven't seen enough. So like I don't know if the like go to sleep thing is like him like talking about the Colts, talking about winning, or if it is talking about Foles directly. You know what I mean? Like it's all, it's up to,
It was
it's
not
his
a good
word.
look in any kind
I
of
agree at the very least it's not a good look, but like
stance.
okay, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because there's a lot of importance to talk about. So the Giants, that was maybe Daniel Jones's finest hour. Like Daniel Jones might have earned a new contract with the Giants on Sunday afternoon against the Colts. Like he was
Mhm.
awesome. Like that. Well, we have sat here many times and said he's an athlete. He proved it. Like he was an athlete on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, for the Giants to go through all this muck for years and finally be able to come out clean on the other side of this thing. It's been an incredible ride for them. I want to give them a lot of credit. Didn't think they were going to be here. Just, like you talked about a few weeks ago, thought they were going to collapse out of this thing. They beat the Commanders, thought that was a really impressive win, and they've righted the ship since. And it's been a great season for them in terms of what they have accomplished relative to their talent level. I think that coaching staff has maximized what they have there because that roster just isn't good. Not only is it not good, it's so injured, it's so banged up. So yeah, I mean they're not like a team that is super scary heading into the playoffs the way that like the Packers are. Not like the team no one wants to play, but they're a tough team and they deserve a lot of credit for being here. And now progress isn't linear. Just because you have this season doesn't mean the Giants are definitely going to be like this powerhouse next year or definitely going to take a step forward. But you're feeling good about that they can.
I think you're at the very least but like beneath that point, you're feeling like we're moving in the right direction. That had not been the case. Like this was an
Yes,
organization that was treading water forever. And so like
taking on water.
right, like even if you're moving slowly at a snail's pace, you are facing the right direction. Like
Hmm.
this whole process was Brian Dable turning this ship around. Coach of the year, we agree, Brian Dable?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I
You can
think
make a huge
Shanahan and
argument for
him
Kyle
are.
Shanahan,
Yeah,
but I think it's like Brian Dable has the New York market, like they're
I
the
think
Giants, they're
actually.
Tiffany brand, like all that stuff.
Well, also like Shanahan, like I get the quarterback thing, but there's a lot of talent on that roster, and the defense is also like what's driving the ship there. And Shanahan's
That's
not
true.
coaching the defense. Now, I know
And
the
Joe,
offense is doing well, but
I don't
I
believe in like I would vote for Dable, but like to further this point, I mean Brian Dable got to the playoffs in an NFC East that had two teams with at least 12 wins. Like they might
yeah,
have two teams with at least 13 wins. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Like that's wild. And he might have
Yep.
lost all four games of them when it's all said and done. But like still, I mean, it wasn't easy. I think it was a much harder
Mhm,
path for Brian Dable. He deserves a lot of credit for that. So now we pivot to this Giants Eagles game.
mhm,
Um, again, this is just kind of a weird episode, but they have nothing to gain. They have absolutely nothing to gain. They could totally sit rest starters. They could not. They could play for it. I talked about last week with you. I brought this up. Like, if it did come to a situation where the Eagles lost to the Saints, like, do the Giants want to get revenge for 2020 and for the Eagles tanking the game, even though it's not Doug Peterson, it's not Joe Judge, whatever, blah, blah, blah. People have referenced Tom Coughlin playing the Giants in the 07 regular season finale, the game that they all said was a big, sort of thing when they won the Super Bowl against the Patriots a
mhm.
few weeks later. Like, blah, 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 blah. Brian Dable has said he's going to do what's in the best interest for his team. It's hard to argue with him one way or another. Like, you can argue, yeah, you got to rest, whatever, you got to prioritize that. You can also argue, hey, go get some good vibes, go play well. But then you can argue, like, well, if you go try to play well and you lose, then you risk all the good vibes. There's a million ways to look at this.
Well, yeah, I think people aren't talking about that enough. I think people are acting, at least from some of the framing that I've seen, that like it's just like it's a no lose proposition for the Giants, and that they can only improve their vibes. Well, I mean, what if the Giants go all out to win and the Eagles crush them like they did a couple weeks ago? Well, that's a big like confidence boost maybe for the Eagles that you just allowed to a division rival. So I'm not like it's just I miss me with there's no risk for the Giants, and not beyond injury. Obviously, injury is.
I saw you tweet too, like why would the Giants want to give the Cowboys the 1 seed? To be
Or honestly, the
fair,
49ers. Like,
well, they
that's
like,
you really
but
want to
like
give them
if
that?
but if you ask the Giants, like, and I say this somewhat like tongue in cheek, but if you ask the Giants, like, who would you rather have the 1 seed, the Eagles, the Cowboys, or the Niners? The answer is the Niners. You know what I mean? Like, but they're gonna say any team over our division rival, no matter what.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that though. I think there's an argument to be made. The 49ers are looking scary, and they don't want to give that team the 1 seed. And also, let's be clear: the line for this game indicates the Giants are going to be resting starters to some extent, at least. It's not 14 points if the Giants are going all out to win. It's like, and Vegas knows they're not dummies. Like, this is not like just they're not in the dark about this. And from a
dummies doesn't get said often enough. That's such a funny word, dummies.
There you go. NFL division talk for dummies. That's what the NFC East mixtape is. But Saquon has the second most touches in the NFL this year. You really have to play him in like a week. Like, you're really going to play him in a week 18 game.
I go back and forth.
Contract year.
There's never a right or wrong answer here, right? Like, you can. I think that there are right circumstances or wrong circumstances, right? Like, if I don't know, if it were the Eagles, right? Like you're not playing, I don't know, like
the right
Lane
time,
Johnson,
the right situation.
Like, I guess, but like what? So like what you just said about Saquon makes sense, right? Like, oh, he's had a lot of touches, whatever, blah. But what if you're Brian Dable and Saquon says, dude, I want to play, like, and it's not like I want to play, like it's like for real, like I want to play. Like if you're asking me my choice, my decision, I want to play. Like, how do you say no? You know what I mean? Like I think you just go with what the players want. Like you say, okay, guys, like. And you can't ask everybody, but you ask Saquon, you ask Daniel Jones. There's really no other offensive star to ask. But like you ask, I guess, Kayvon Thibodeau, you ask everybody, like, how do you feel? Do you just want to go get warm? Do you want to just get a little bit under your legs? Like whatever. And you do what each player wants. Like you treat it like a workout for them, you know, and if you wind up winning, cool. If you don't, hey, it's not the end of the world either.
The expectation from Big Blue View, Ed Valentine, I was talking to him about this, and he said he thinks the Giants are going to treat it like a preseason game. And, you know, I think you have to, too, with some of these players who, like, you know, can play because it's important right now, but don't have to play. You probably have to sit them. Like, they're really gutting it out just to play. You have to take it safe with some of those guys. Again, I just don't see how they would want to get Saquon even more touches in this game.
But what if he has a lot of touches and they win? Like, you know, that's the what if. Like there are what ifs that live in everybody's mind.
I just don't think it's and I'm not like, obviously people are going to accuse me of saying this because like I want the Eagles to win and get the 1 seed. I don't think it's the most logical thing for them to play their starters. And on the 2007 point, it's just not apples to apples, man. Like they were trying to prevent an undefeated season. That's a big difference than what's happening here. And also, it's 2007, and Tom Coughlin's like one of the most antiquated coaches ever. Think about that. Like we're in 2022 now, where rest is so much more common.
Is the year that we're in?
Sorry, true. The 2022 season. We're in year 2023. Good job of you. Totally forgot it's a new year. But like the point being,
it's the first mixtape of the new year, by the way. Happy New Year!
It is. Happy New Year. But isn't you get my point though, right? Like rest is so much more common now than it was back then.
I agree, but again, like. It is like that's what I'm saying. Like I truly feel like there's no right or wrong answer. I'm somebody who would if it was no, but like you can provide any example in NFL history.
Let's take a Giants fan perspective. Is that fair to you?
Yeah, I mean, and I understand that. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I think most people want to like our team rest, right? Like I think most, especially fans, right? Like are like that's my opinion, right? Like if it were the Cowboys, if the Cowboys had been locked into the 5 seed this week, I'd be like, why are you going to play Dak Prescott? That would be my take.
Sure.
But I get like from a coaching standpoint, especially if the players want to play, I get that it's not an easy thing, but even then some coaches handle it differently. Like we both agree that the Titans did the right thing. Mike Vrabel said the day they lost to the Texans, he was like, yeah, this is probably going to play a factor in how we approach the Cowboys game. Like not every coach is like that. You know what I mean? Like it's a different thing. And so I'm not saying one is better, one is worse, one is right, one is wrong. I'm at the very least just interested. I also, you didn't mention this. I do think there's something to like, maybe like playing super 40 chess with the Eagles and like throwing your nobodies out there and then being like, you're gonna feel really good about this 1 seed, and I would say, like, if you're an Eagles fan, you would go into the divisional round saying, like, we haven't played anybody, like, or we haven't won a game against a quality team in over a month, if the Giants do trot those people out. So they're like, again, you can talk about like the weapons of warfare a million times here.
Poll from bigblueview.com. How
BBV.
should Brian
BBV, Big Blue View.
Oh, yeah. How should Brian Daboll approach the Giants' final regular season game in Philadelphia? And with about, let's just say, like 4,500 people voting, 46% say play the starters and try to deny the Eagles the number 1 seed and give it to the Cowboys, and 54%, so more, it's fairly split, but more Giants fans say rest the starters and probably hand the 1 seed to the Eagles. My last point on this before you get to what you want to say is that this isn't even necessarily the Giants win and the Eagles are guaranteed not to be the 1 seed. Now, is that likely? Clearly, yes. But my point is, it's not even a guaranteed outcome. There's a scenario where the Giants can play the starters, go out to win the game, and the 49ers and the Cowboys both lose, and then the Eagles get it anyway. So all that risk would have been for literally nothing. Like, that's just dumb to me.
So all I was going to add, and I don't know who wrote the poll. If it was Ed, sorry, Ed.
It was Ed.
But,
Ed Valentine.
And by the way, our plan is to have Ed on next week's show.
It was not. It was Tony Del Genio. Sorry.
Well, our plan here is to have Ed on next week to preview whatever wild card game the Giants are playing in. So Ed is we're shooting to get Ed on the mixtape next week, everybody. But I talked about, and you agreed, like when it came to Jalen Hurts, you make these decisions when you're not emotionally compromised. You are a little bit emotionally compromised here because you know the stakes at hand. But if it's me, if I'm Brian Daboll, I'm making the decision on whether I want to play or not, independent of the Eagles and the 1 seed stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to make the decision to play because, like, and like Brandon and RJ can disagree with it, but like you have to say, like, we're going to play because we want the like reps. We want the opportunity. We want to try to win, but you have to treat it like it's a game against the Texans. You can't be like, well, we wouldn't play if it was the Texans. We're only going to play because it's the Eagles. No, you have to like say, we would do this no matter who the opponent was. That's my advice to Brian Daboll. Also my advice, always lose to the Cowboys. But okay, let's get to the Washington Commanders. The question that everybody wants to know, Brandon. Actually, we do have some Twitter questions that we'll kind of blitz through after this. I know. I'll get those up in a minute, but the question that everybody has on their mind: do you believe that Ron Rivera did not know that the Commanders could be eliminated on Sunday?
Apparently, I have like the hottest take on this, and which people are probably going to be mad about. I just don't think it matters. I mean, at least relative to
I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of with you.
I mean, like everyone's like bagging on him for this, and I get it. I get why it's like a meme and it's certainly
a bad look.
Like I said earlier, it's not a good look. I get that. I'm not like a dummy, but I'm just saying, like, I'd rather see him get ripped for like going with Carson Wentz again. I was wrong. I said like I thought that was like an acceptable move. I said I don't think it really matters who they start. They're not in good shape either way. But like in hindsight, why were you playing Carson Wentz? That was dumb. Like Heineke hasn't been great, but he gives you some kind of chance to win. And Carson Wentz is clearly just a disaster at this point. So I think, they might still lose even if they play Heineke, but you probably had more of a chance. And at least his teammates don't hate him. And at least the fans don't hate him as much. Or at least the fans like Heineke more. Like, I don't know, but whatever. I mean, is Rivera back next year? That's the question, right? I don't think he's going to survive this. I think that was a bad look. And you have the new ownership consideration coming in here. That's a big factor to weigh.
So let me ask you a question before I answer. Will you lose any respect? That's a dramatic way to put it, but lose any respect for Ron Rivera if we get some sort of report in the next few weeks that like it wasn't his decision to go back to Wentz. Like it was an Irsay, Matt Ryan benching sort of thing. Like it was directed from whoever, where, you know what I mean? Like, to me, that might be true, but like at this point, given everything we know, I would be inclined to believe that's Ron Rivera doing a little bit of damage control. Like, like, dude, like I can't let you shuck the blame for this onto somebody else. Like, and so I'm with you. Like, even if like the Carson Wentz thing hadn't happened, I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world for a coach to not know the playoff scenarios that like every SB Nation team blog has going. That's not your job. Right. Like your job is to win the game at hand, right? And people are like, well, he was only focused on winning. Yeah, he should be. Like he should only operate as if they're going to win the game. So like I don't think that's a big deal. But this was really bold, and like let's not make like you said, like this should not overshadow the Wentz thing. the Wentz thing should not overshadow how he's handled the quarterback situation all year long. Remember when he had that one press conference, whenever it was like in October,
Yes.
and he was asked like, what's the difference between you and the other teams? And he was like, quarterback. Like, he threw this dude under the bus. Like, he is the king of pointing fingers this season. That's not who Ron Rivera has been for the most of his career. But this season, he has been pushing and directing blame onto everybody else, and he has had no problem making Carson Wentz the scapegoat that everybody else has. That's not to say that Wentz isn't to blame and Wentz doesn't have his flaws, but like at this point, it's kind of a weak move to blame Carson Wentz. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't do that anymore. I thought it was lame when the Colts did it last year. I'm very well on record about that. And now Rivera's like, well, I'm going to give you Sam Howell. In fact, actually, as we're talking right now, it's 11:05 Central. Sam Howell's taking the first team reps for the Commanders. He's reportedly going to split time with Heineke on Sunday.
I mean, don't even play. Why even play Heineke? Just play Sam Howell. I'm not the biggest. I was never the biggest Sam Howell guy. So I'm not super like intrigued to see him, but hey, it's week 18. You have nothing to gain or lose. Just put him out there. There's no reason to play Heineke. There's no reason to play Wentz at this point. By the way, Carson Wentz, I'm convinced he doesn't play in the NFL again.
Carson Wentz is going to have like a college football announcing job next year.
I don't even know though, because like I don't know if he's like high profile because he played Division I FC. Like I don't know if
that's but like it'll be like covering like you know what I'm saying? Like I don't think he's like working the SEC. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. Okay. But yeah, I think he's done. And it's funny. Albert Breer actually wrote that too in his column. So I don't think that's just like a me, being harsh on him sentiment. I think that might be. It should exist out there. I don't think he wants to be a backup. And honestly, I think the best move for him is to retire. Like he's been through so much, and I don't really feel bad for him necessarily, but like he's been through a lot. And some of it's his own, undoing and his own fault. But I don't see what he has to gain by playing anymore. And maybe I think he does play somewhere if there's like an injury in training camp next year and like, someone needs a starter on short notice and he's out there and he's like the top option. I think that can happen. But I don't think he's signing with anyone in like March or April, whenever he gets cut, because he will, and like being a backup somewhere. I do not see that at all. And and honestly, don't do it. It's not worth your time. He's made a ton of money. Just go out and don't suffer any more injuries and don't suffer any more like. Because think about it, it must be tough to be like everyone just bagging on you all the time. Oh, this guy's like, just get away from that. Like be with your family and just call it a career.
I said at the time, I mean, I really did, that Carson Wentz was in a really difficult spot with the 2017 Eagles, and like that was I know that like people laugh at this idea now, but it took a lot of humility to behave the way he did throughout the Super Bowl festivities. That had to be a really painful experience for him, right? Like to watch Nick Foles kind of celebrate what he felt was his. I mean, and like that's not to say he wasn't happy for him, and I don't want to relitigate something that's 5 years old at this point. But like I on a human level felt for Carson Wentz in that sense, because that had to be very difficult to go through, and obviously that has had some sort of impact on him. Maybe it led to some of the narcissism and arrogance that we've seen in his stops with Philly and Indianapolis and Washington since. But it's not all on him. It wasn't all on him in Philly. I'm not saying it wasn't majorly him. It wasn't all on him in Indianapolis. We have certainly learned that, if you didn't already know it. And this isn't all on Carson Wentz. This is on Ron Rivera. To get back to like your question, like I don't know how you move on from him, but I don't know how you keep him. Like he is, he's like kind of that the you're stuck. Like, I mean, who wants this job? You're right. Like ownership's changing, maybe whatever. Also the Major Tutty thing happened. They unveiled the mascot. I thought I read, maybe if you read, you can confirm that the Snyders were not in attendance for this like celebration or whatever.
I don't know.
Well, and if that's true, that would be notable, right? Like,
why would you unveil this at like week 17 in a situation where you could be eliminated on that day? Bad. Like, and also, why week 17? That's weird. It's a weird time. Like, why wouldn't you do it like week 1? Excitement, beginning of the season.
By the way, just updates coming in from Commanders practice right now. This is from Nikki Jabvala. It's her last name so difficult to pronounce, but she's awesome. She tweeted, Sam Howell has taken the first reps in practice. No Brian Robinson or Antonio Gibson. She tweeted that she doesn't see Jonathan Allen or Cam Curl or Benjamin St. Juste. Jamin Davis isn't practicing. Charles Leno is there but not practicing. She said it could be a possible vet day. Like they're clearly mailing it in, right? Like they have nothing to play for. They're mailing it in. I could see them hitting the reset. The Ron Rivera era has been like average at best in Washington. I mean, I don't know. And I will say he took over and like his like what was it like fourth day in office there, so to speak, was like, well, you got to change the name and deal. Like he's had to deal with a lot of extenuating circumstances. It hasn't been easy, so I don't mean to overlook that either. But I don't know, man. This team is lost.
Yeah, I mean, it's Washington. It's
Right.
like as long as Snyder is there, they're gonna any kind of little like glimpse of hope, like or glimmer of hope that the Commanders had for a little bit there when it looked like, oh, they're what 5-1, 6-1, they might go on a run. They're probably gonna get a wild card spot. I mean, it's just going to come back to this organization doesn't know what it's doing and things are going to go wrong at some point. And you might be able to have a moment or two. You might be able to win the NFC some years, but there's no sustained success. There's never going to be sustained success. And maybe there will be with the new ownership. If Jeff freaking Bezos buys this team and can like just spend money out the wazoo, like that's scary. That's a scary thought for every other team in the NFC East. If like someone just comes in with a ton of money, kind of like the new Broncos ownership, and just has like unlimited funds, and they hire this like all-star coaching staff, and they revamp the facilities, like that's a scary thought. That's not here right now, but that hope does exist for Commanders fans.
Let's get to these Twitter questions. So I tweeted out that we were going to record. I tweeted this out on Monday afternoon, obviously, well before Monday Night Football. There's like 6 or 7 or maybe 8 of them. So let's try to like blitz through here because we've gone a little bit long. First one comes to us from Jaime on Twitter at Jaime SV. V is in Victoria 88. This was on Tuesday. Given the events of yesterday on Monday Night Football, I just want to thank you both for your work, and I look forward to hearing your perspectives on last night. Best to you both and your families always. I hope we did offer whatever we could. The mixtape is really fun, and we enjoy that everybody likes it. And so we just want to exist as a place where people can hopefully enjoy a podcast once a week.
I just think, I don't know if we're going to offer anything that hasn't been said anywhere,
Right.
or, some kind of crazy revelation. But I think the objective is just to be honest about how we feel. I think that's all we can really do.
Johnny Tremaine at 89 Tremaine says, for the playoff teams, so sorry, Commanders, most favorable path to the Super Bowl, and what is the most likely way that team loses in the playoffs? So I think he's asking, what is the most favorable path for each one, and what is the way that each team loses in the playoffs? So I think favorable path is drawing the Bucks as a first opponent. That would be the Cowboys or the Eagles. And even if the Eagles drew them in the divisional round, if Dallas lost, and I think like Tampa's a good launching point, is my point. They're one of the weaker teams, I think, in the whole conference.
I mean, for the Eagles, it would be, okay, you get the 1 seed, and then the Giants somehow upset the 49ers, and then you get to play.
But you're saying the Giants upset, but the Packers don't, right?
Yes. Yeah, and the Packers don't, or they don't get in, whatever. Yeah, I don't. It's just too much to answer there in terms of like.
I think the Giants upsetting is the answer for everything, right? Like, so even if you're the Cowboys, it's like, oh, the Giants upset in the wild card round. You go to San Francisco, you get the win, and the Giants upset the Eagles.
So I think the ideal scenario in terms of what's also realistic is the 49ers get the 2 seed, and the Packers get the 7 seed. So one of those teams is going to be gone, because I think everyone, Eagles fans and Cowboys fans, can agree you want at least one of those teams eliminated. You don't want them both making it through to the divisional round.
You know what? Now that you say that, like, I don't know that this is my most ideal, but if I live in this hypothetical, so say it's Eagles 1, Niners 2, everything else chalk, and Packers at 7. So Packers get the upset. That sends the Packers to Philly in the divisional round, and that sends Dallas either to Minnesota or hosting the Giants. I think to Minnesota, but you think it's a coin flip. That's favorable for both Dallas and Philly.
Yes.
And then obviously,
not the Eagles hosting the Packers.
Well, I meant maybe not that part, but that's favorable for Dallas, because then like you only have to play 2 of those 3. You know what I mean? You don't have to play 2 of the Packers, Niners, and Eagles, but it'd be fun.
How about this real quick? I think this might be a better way to get an answer to that question, because I asked this to Ed Valentine from Big Blue View. How would you rank the NFC playoff picture teams right now, so everyone's still alive, from most threatening to least threatening?
Including the Cowboys? You asking me?
9. Yes.
Okay.
So like you're not opponent wise, just like the teams, rank them from.
And we're gonna assume Green Bay gets in as the 7th.
Well, I'm saying NFC playoff picture teams. So there's 9 teams.
Okay, got you. So I'm not like trolling or anything. I need to
Uh-huh.
see something from the Eagles to just like let me be like understand all is well. That so like I'm going off of like what we've seen from the Eagles as
Well,
of
yeah,
late.
don't explain it all. Just go through it.
Niners, Cowboys, Eagles, Vikings, Packers,
Wow.
Bucks,
hmm
Giants, Lions, Seahawks.
Okay. Yeah, I would probably go 49ers, Eagles, because I don't know where Jalen Hurts' health is at yet. If I know Jalen Hurts is healthy, I'm putting Eagles at the
Well, you
top.
said not to explain it. You literally told me not to explain it, and then
But
you
I'm saying
wanted to
that's the only
explain it.
thing. That's the only. Well, people are gonna like ask about that. So real quick, and
That's
then
why we both had to add a qualifier. So you
Okay.
shouldn't have chastised me.
No, I should have. And then I would put then I
Dude,
put
don't come on. Don't
I'm
do
gonna put
this.
Packers, and then I'm
Oh
gonna put
my God.
Cowboys. I
That's
mean,
so
Rodgers scares me.
stupid.
Rodgers
So
scares me.
stupid.
He does. And then I'm gonna put probably Buccaneers.
You're putting the Bucks ahead of the Cowboys.
No, I put Cowboys. I said
Okay,
so
okay.
it's
So you got
49ers.
Cowboys
Let me start
4.
over. 49ers 1, Eagles 2, Packers 3, Cowboys 4, Buccaneers 5,
Giants. Look, your last
Giants
two.
6.
Yeah.
Actually, no. Lions 6, Giants 7, Seahawks 8, and then who am I missing?
The
Oh,
Vikings.
Vikings 9. Yep.
You have you're more scared of the Lions or Seahawks than you are the Vikings.
Yeah.
That's a little silly to me, but whatever.
There are
Okay.
4 teams eliminated from the playoffs currently that have point differentials better than the Vikings. 4 teams.
Wow. Okay, let's get through these last ones. Greg C91 on Twitter, Greg C91 says, how upset would you be if the Giants did make the decision to rest their key starters against the Eagles this week? You wouldn't be upset at all. I wouldn't be upset. Like I wouldn't be like I wouldn't be the way that the Giants were about the Eagles. Like it's in their best interest. Like you have to understand and accept that. I would be bummed, but like it wouldn't upset me. So.
And also, I don't think you're here, so I'm not taking a shot at you. And I don't know if this is a common thing, but like I don't want to hear like, oh, the Eagles got a free win. It's like I don't want to hear that from Cowboys fans who just got to.
I won't say that.
Just got to play the Titans with what they did. Like I don't want to hear.
I won't say that. However, I will say, and I mean this, like it's hard. It's got to be hard to be the Eagles and like not have yourself be like truly tested in a way that you came out with a win in so long before you start the playoffs. But like, yeah, but like
that's a fair point.
But who cares? Like you figure that out as you go. Okay.
You sign up for the 1 seed no matter what.
Right.
You just take it.
Let's see here. From Isaac at Isaac Cruz 32 says, "Do you think Dallas can handle a Tom Brady who is getting his vibe back?" I'm gonna just change this question to say, "Do you think Tom Brady is getting his vibe back?"
I didn't see the Panthers game, so I don't like have enough to go off.
They were down 14-0 in that game.
Yeah.
To start.
I mean, I've said this is not like trolling. I've consistently said throughout playoff picture discussion throughout the whole season that like because we've talked about who can really win the NFC, who can really go to the Super Bowl, and I'm like, I don't think it's likely that the Bucs can, but I cannot give them a 0% chance. I don't care how bad they look, as long as Brady's in the playoffs.
You can't give anybody 0% chance. Like that's why you
give the Vikings a 0% chance. I can give the Seahawks a 0% chance. I can give the Giants a 0% chance. I cannot give the Bucs.
Along these lines, I tweeted this on Monday. Like if you could tell me like what would be the sweetest path to the Super Bowl, right? Like what would be the like Nirvana path,
the most
right?
like satisfying,
right?
path.
It would be the Bucs in the wild card round because the Cowboys have never beaten Tom Brady, and then he like leaves the Bucs, so you end his Bucs career, and then it would be either the Packers or the Niners or Eagles. Like either one on the road. Like Niners, longtime rival team that bounced you. Eagles, it's obvious. You go win, and you get the win to send you to the title game at either one of those venues. Like for the first time in a quarter century, like that would be really really sweet. Again, I wouldn't care. Like they're interchangeable to me. The sweetest thing would be Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship game. You beat him with Mike McCarthy. That would be so funny. So
Cowboys fan fiction scenario.
Well, you asked. I mean, like that was the question. Okay. Let's try to wrap these up. JG Mongan on Twitter. If you could take one player off each of the other 3 NFC East teams to use in the playoffs on your team, who would they be? And yes, you have to take a Commanders player. I'm taking AJ Brown, Saquon, just to give me another option. And no, not Saquon. I don't know. I don't really have a giant.
Dexter Lawrence.
Okay. No, I'm taking Kayvon Thibodeau. Like the player. No, I'm taking Dexter
I think
Lawrence.
you should take
I'm taking Dexter Lawrence. Yeah, I'm
He's been like
taking
an all-pro player this
I'm
season.
taking Dexter Lawrence, AJ Brown, and Terry McLaurin. Those are my answers.
That's hard. That's a hard question because Dexter Lawrence is the best player I think on the Giants, but the Eagles have a lot of like defensive tackle bodies and depth. So like, is that really the best use? Might have to take Saquon because I think
Yeah, you can run the ball like in even
Yeah.
larger senses.
Yeah. And Commanders, like again, do I really take like a wide receiver when
it helps the Cowboys? So that's why it was an easy answer for me.
when like when the Eagles, I don't think they're really hurting. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, it would be nice to add Terry McLaurin to Devontae Smith and but like, is there anyone on defense I really want? I guess I'll take Terry McLaurin, and then I will take who am I left from the Cowboys?
Yeah.
Interesting. And I already took. Well, that's the thing. I already took a wide receiver. I don't know.
Brandon will do everything.
Maybe
to not
okay. So
give credit to Micah Parsons.
I'll take Pollard, and then I'll take Dexter Lawrence.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Instead of taking Saquon and Micah Parsons, really.
Oh, Parsons stuff. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about him.
Although
I will say, who leads the NFL in
anyway
sacks created right now? It's Hassan Reddick.
Johnny
Who has 3
Tremaine.
more sacks
Johnny
than Micah
Tremaine
Parsons
also
this year?
asked. He said, also more fireable offense, not knowing that you could be eliminated with a loss, or playing starters in a meaningless game and losing a key player to injury. Probably the second thing.
I would say the second. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like the first thing's embarrassing, but like, what did it actually change? What changed because of that?
Nothing.
What was? Were the Commanders not trying to win as much because they didn't know they get like no?
Right, I agree. Last one. It's about the Commanders. Comes to us from Ryan Gavani at R Gavani. Why is the mascot of the Commanders a major? I think that's I don't know if Major Tutty, like I don't know if like first name Major, last name Tutty, or if Major is Tutty's rank in the military. I don't know, to be fair.
I think it's the rank.
So you're saying his first name is Tutty and he happens to be a major in the military. So why is he a major is the question.
And why not like a higher rank? Is that what do you think they're getting?
Yeah, hang on.
Because general would be the highest rank.
But
that's kind of a weird thing to say. General Tutty, like that's not really like major is also, like the an amount of something. It's dumb. Look, I'm not defending this. It's all very dumb. But I'm saying I don't think the highest rank in that case, general, sounds like better than major.
What is the like? I don't know the like. I googled this and there's not like a list that is super easy to like what the highest like. I want to know where major ranks. Like
major is like it's a high-ish rank, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Look, I'm not a military expert, but it's not. I mean, there's things above that, like general. There's different levels of general, if I'm not mistaken. It's not just like there's different kinds of generals. There's like lieutenant general, whatever, like that. All that stuff is above major.
So
major is in like an officer,
okay,
and so generals are like in their.
I found
class.
a list from. I could be wrong here, but this list, it appears that the highest possible thing is general of the army. Next,
yeah, that's like during wartime.
Right. Next, like beneath that is general. Beneath that, lieutenant general. So that's number 3. So number 4 is major general, which seemingly isn't what Major Tutty is.
No.
Beneath that is brigadier general. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. Brigadier general. Beneath that is colonel. Beneath that is lieutenant colonel. Beneath that is major. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ranks ahead of major. So
it's still a high rank, to be clear. It's not like because then there's like the enlisted, like like your typical soldier or whatever. Like they're down. It's above a lot of people, is what I'm trying to say. But
yeah, it's above
below
privates, corporals, sergeants, all sorts of sergeants. There is a command sergeant major. Maybe that would have been appropriate here.
That's too long.
It's higher than second or first lieutenant. It's also higher than captain. So at least he's not a captain. Captain Tutty.
The point is, it's
so actually, Major Tutty outranks the captains on the team because they're captains and he's a major. Wow. Okay.
All right.
That was a good one to wrap this on. Brandon, as we leave,
what is your favorite produce item? Because I don't want to get into like I was gonna say like fruit or vegetable. Then it's a whole debate of what's a fruit and and I don't want to get into that. That's not the point. So
I'm a big banana person. I really like bananas. I also enjoy the process of picking bananas. Like I think like that's something I'm really good at is picking a bunch of bananas that's gonna last the
I thought you meant
exact
from like the tree for a second. I was
like
"Wait,
like
what?"
it's gonna like I'm really good at assessing like the green yellow to
Ripeness.
to, to
Yeah.
last exactly how long I need it for. Like for whether it's like
Mm.
3 or 4 days or the week or whatever. That's a really underrated skill of mine.
Or
Um
maybe the amount. I mean, obviously you can, kind of like break some off if you want a certain amount.
don't be that person. Don't tear some off. Like
No, I
just
don't.
look
I'm
for them.
saying like, if you really wanted to, you can alter that. But I think there's a skill too in finding like the right amount relative to the ripeness too. Like, okay, there's like 3 here. Like there might be, but it also depends what you want them for. Sometimes you just want one a day, whatever you're doing. Sometimes you want them like more ripe because you want to use them right now for a smoothie, or if like I'm getting if I make a banana bread because sometimes I'll do that.
What? You can make a banana bread? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I mean it's really easy, but I can. And but you want them extra ripe for that. Like you do not want them underdone. Like you want them almost overripe a little bit. It makes for a
Mm.
better experience with that.
That's why like when bananas are really ripe, people are like, make some banana bread. That's where the saying comes from.
It's
From the
really I make a mean banana bread. I have to say it's
okay.
really good. I can. It's really
I'll
good.
just
Ask Holden. Ask anyone.
I don't ask Holden things. I tell Holden things.
Ask
Just to be
ask
very
him.
clear.
Ask around. Anyone will
Um,
vouch for me. My favorite produce item. I was just thinking about this yesterday, which is I brought the question up. I mean, I love potatoes. That's probably the actual answer, and it's because they're just so versatile, a lot of forms. But
they're like the bananas of vegetables.
and I like bananas too, to be clear. But I
Right.
think we have to show some love to jalapeno. I mean, I think a jalapeno is just a great time.
Do
Just
you two questions. When you get potatoes, do you get the like prepackaged like 4-pack or whatever, or do you like put them in your own bag? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you go to the
mm,
loose ones and get like the two or like you pick the potatoes you want?
that's a
Because
good
they do have
question.
you can do it either way.
I don't really think I think I do it either way. I don't think I set out to do it one way or the other.
What are your thoughts on sweet potatoes?
They have a place and time, but it's not all the time. A time and place
Baked or mashed?
for potatoes.
Yeah,
I think I'd rather have baked, honestly.
I agree with you. I think if you're gonna do mashed, you got to leave like chunks of the skin in there. So I get some like
What are you talking about?
it becomes like baked mashed. You know
That's
what I'm saying? Like,
insane.
but mashed.
Well, how do you feel about a smashed potato?
I'm cool with that. How do you feel?
I actually
How,
probably like that better than a
how do you
mashed
feel
potato.
about like you ever had like lobster, mashed potatoes or like some sort of
Lobster
like
mashed potatoes.
yeah.
What? Is that a
You never
thing?
had yeah.
No. I've heard of a lobster mac and cheese, but not a
Yeah,
lobster
I've had
mashed
like
potato.
they're like a smashed mashed potatoes with like little bits of lobster. Like I mean, you're not getting this at
Smashed
like
mashed potatoes? What is this?
you're not getting this at like Wawa. No offense, but like you know there's certain places you can get it. I've had it.
Hmm.
3 words that describe both potatoes and bananas. Go.
Yellow
Okay.
produce. Fun.